Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. Yeah, that's almost right. Almost. Yeah, nothing happening except my brain is just not pleased. Um, just everything seems so futile and difficult at the moment. Going into winter, not a good attitude actually. But anyway, it's the way it is. People are quite tedious. Speaking of tedious people, Antikontavad made a video. I haven't been watching the usual crappers, the usual people, so I have to go to their channel if I want to see if they've updated anything. Just because I haven't fixed my indexing thing, but whatever, not your problem. Anyway, Google made changes, and so some of my little programs have broken. But anyway, I noticed Puro hasn't made videos lately, but Antikontavad, yeah, he hadn't made a video in quite a while, so he made a video just letting everybody know that he's still around and still kind of interested, but too busy, doing his self-improvement thing, or self-control thing, or selfing. Um, touching thyself in whatever, you know, this whole idea of finding the perspective to live with through life, something that keeps you motivated, keeps you in the game, keeps you alive, in positive ways, which, certainly I'd say if you can do that, do it. But if you can only do that by pretending everything's all right, or, it's, you don't have to take responsibility for the blowback. Whoa, that wasn't a good move. I'm just trying to get this camera thing at the right angle. Probably really doesn't matter. So I'm just kind of haggard. So, yes. So, yes. Me being in the video isn't too important, maybe. Just be nice if you could just pull your brain out and, let it do the work, and you could just go somewhere else and do something else. But anyway, so it was an interesting video. He sort of considers me some sort of useful foil in his development, Alright, so the context here for me this week, it's just been, I've been watching movies, and I haven't done that in quite some time, new movies. Well, movies I haven't seen yet. I'm doing the Antikontavad thing. It's the cat. I've become allergic to cats, which it's not too good when you feed 3 of them. But anyway, in that, movies are stories, and stories can make you think about things and how people perceive things, and the formula that engages people or hooks them, and the stuff that even hooks me. I mean, even recognizing my own triggers are hooks, are places I can be caught, traps I can fall in terms of, oh, I want to see what happens, or that kind of thing. And some of them are just, cliche human ones, and some are more sophisticated. And so in a way that sort of relates to Antikontavad, because he was sort of talking about friendships online, or whatever, relationships, or whatever, this kind of interaction that is, it's real life, you're really interacting, and so that's real for you. And a lot of these sci-fi movies kind of go with those kind of themes, the AI stuff, or the aliens and their motives, and humans and their motives, and there's always they can't just do the happily ever after thing anymore, because that doesn't really work. Well, they try to. Let's not pretend that's not how they end an awful lot of movies. Like, oh yes, and everything turned out just wonderful, and no one got old and cancer and died. When no, we know they got old and got cancer and died. And so, it doesn't really work. And so you get into these kind of ideas of the, just being recycled through the meat grinder. So maybe I should mention some movies, and, I didn't know whether to do a separate video or, and how deep to get into them, because some of them, they're not great movies, but the stories, can provoke an awful lot of thought. And, and so there's so many, whether to argue just the plot flaws or to argue the theme flaw or the hypocrisy or the duplicity of the messages and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of them just rely in the end on some sort of romantic notion. Most all of them. Some sort of like love will conquer all or something. And that's very nice, and I'm not totally obnoxious to beauty killed the beast kind of exaggerations of the power of passions, especially romantic passions, and finding something that the right drug, finally, something that does it, that completes you. Yes, a line from the movies. It's a real idea, but it's, in practice, I don't know whether it can't be sustained, unless you could kind of regenerate the process of the fight and the like a virgin thing. You could just keep reliving the best day of your life or something. Well, yeah, okay, maybe that could work. But that's not in practice the world we get. And it requires a kind of, just being a bug and, being a dinosaur even. One of the movies was Jurassic Park World or whatever, it's Jurassic World. And, the ending was just so worth it. Just because they used the big swimming dinosaur too many times. They already, used him up. And it was just too, and then again, happily ever after, all of a sudden the Tyrannosaurus understands, oh, okay, I was just here to kill that guy, and okay, I'll go toddle off now. And, the other raptor is like, oh, yeah, we're sort of friends, okay, I'll just go toddle off now. That didn't make any sense. It was really, they're preposterously dumb animals until the end of the movie, and all of a sudden they're all insightful, and, oh yeah, I get it. There's all kinds of subtle plots in this story, isn't there? Oh, okay, I'm supposed to now, I can understand now. Oh, come on. Crocodiles do not understand. Ever. But anyway, so that was, that was kind of junk. Kind of a sort of not much to say. There isn't any. That one didn't have much of a story. It was just too cliche. Oh, the evil agency trying to make this super military weapon or something, and blah blah. That story is just so done and finished, and I didn't even like when they used it in the Aliens movie. It's just kind of preposterous and silly. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like any kind of, it's like using bacterial whatever agents to kill your enemy or something, ones you don't have a cure for, I mean, yeah, for sure, that's going to work. So anyway, it didn't make much sense. So, yeah, so maybe I'll mention some of the others, just see what they trigger in the order in which I can find them. Logan, the follow-up to the, whatever he was called, Wolverine or whatever. I never liked that character much. Didn't think it was, whatever. Didn't think much of it. And, but this was a point where you could redeem something out of this character. And, this is his last stand, so to speak. And that comes up in movies a lot, too, dying well. And that's all you've got, in the end. Is, try to go out. If you haven't lived a very good life, you can do a little redeeming in the end or something, or, graceful exits, kind of a thing I would talk about. But anyway, the idea of, they could have redeemed this character, and they didn't do any of that. They just turned him into an idiot. And it just seems so insanely idiotic in the sense that, he's this character that's been so abused, and he's got this horrible blight that he's lived with, and nobody can understand, and nobody can be his friend, and all this bullshit. And this little girl shows up who's been abused the same way, and he doesn't in some way, and it's his own daughter, genetically, and he can't even muster an emotion, a feeling, and that was just too insane. Because even I, as not a wolf person, she was adorable. It was just so cute watching her rip people's heads off and shit. I mean, you had to love it. It was fantastic. And they just ruined it by making him way too cold, way preposterously too cold. And I was talking to somebody, long-time friend kind of person on the internet, and I pointed out too that they had this scene in there where they just wiped the family out, and if it was a white family, they would have never done it. That was what it was a black family, and so they could get away with just wiping them out. And they were wiped out because of these people going there and staying for the night, and it was all a very nice little moment that they all got a little peace and quiet and got to stay in a regular house and be human beings for a little while. And, and they ended up getting them annihilated. Just slaughtered. And, frankly, it just gives you bad math. You're just saying, well, are these mutants worth it? I mean, if that's the cost, is it worth it? And then, like I said, it seemed kind of gratuitous, because I'm just saying, if if it was a white family, and let's say the son was, instead of a son, it was a daughter that got killed, 12-year-old or something, no way they could have done that scene. And, everybody just would have walked out or whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? It just wouldn't have been acceptable. So that, and the ending was just crap. So, really didn't have anything. It wasn't much, except for that little kid. She was fantastic. Played the part perfect. Yeah. So anyway, it's like a little Hannibal Lecter or something. It's just adorable. So anyway, other movie, The Avengers, something or other. I don't know the full title off the top of my head. They're fighting the robot guy, Metal Man or whatever, who's Jarvis, whatever, mutated or something, and blah blah blah. And again, it's just this, it's supposed to be a cartoon. Yes, I get it. It's a comic strip, kind of. There's no plot reality in it anywhere. It doesn't have to make any sense physically or in any kind of real sense. So I guess they can just make super intelligent things incredibly stupid. And I go, oh, that's okay. We expect that. But the part that really, and of course I can't stand the flying aircraft carrier thing. That's just too preposterously stupid. So yeah, fuck that. Just the whole idea of it launches boats, flying boats to go rescue people. I mean, silly. You could just shoot a ramp over or something. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. Silly, 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 silly. But anyway, the whole idea was that at this one point they have this decision to make about how many people are going to die. And it can be these people on this little island of dirt that's rising and going to crash into the earth, or you have all the other earthlings on the entire planet at jeopardy. Like that's a decision. I mean, obviously, if you can, kill 1,000 now to prevent killing 7 billion, in about 3 minutes, yeah, well, you have to do it. And it just seemed too focused on this take care of the civilians first kind of bullshit, where superheroes already got to know that I can't be bothered doing that. I got to do the eye on the prize. Got to keep my eye on the curing the disease kind of thing. Got to get the enemy. You can't be. It's just too sappy, too silly. So that was sort of All right, so it's watchable just for watching the silly shit that goes on. The insanely overdone slaughtering and killing of the enemies and all that stuff. So yes, it's fun for that. But beyond that, it's a cartoon. Not too much. Yeah, just not much. So then there was some other silly movie. I guess Oblivion. That's the Tom Cruise one, I think. So that's sort of interesting story. It'd be better if Tom Cruise wasn't in it, but whatever. But it's like aliens come here in this preposterously oversized thing, and they're not even living in the preposterously oversized thing. It's really just some sort of blinky light intelligence thing that just decides for no good reason to, I guess, slaughter everybody on Earth and steal the water, as if the aliens are going to do something with water. And this notion is just so ancient. I mean, how can anybody think that any future civilization wouldn't be able to filter water? Water is really, it's just not that complicated. You can reuse it. I mean, our own space people drink their own urine. I mean, it's not a big deal. You filter it. You can get the water back out. Yes, it's a little expensive, but you can do it. It's a lot cheaper than going to some other planet and trying to bring it all the way to your planet. Yeah, trust me. Filtering's a lot cheaper. But what would a silicon blah 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 whatever robotic intelligence thingy, what use would it have for water? It doesn't have water in its veins. It's not made out of goo. Just kind of, well, it's extremely silly. But the interesting part was the idea of clones and the idea of who you are. Are you 5 years of your memories, or are you 10 years of memories? Are you the whole 57 years of memories? What part of you is you? What part of you is your identity? Are you still the 10-year-old, or are you the 25-year-old? Which one most defines who you are? And that's sort of an interesting question. And just that whole question of you're just playing the roles. You could switch the identities of people, and you're just playing a role of somebody attached or addicted, or and you just number them, and it's just all the same thing, just being subtly played out in these little subtle different ways. And certainly all those clone kind of movies always get me thinking about what subtle differences, how many differences do I have to make to the clone, how many changes, how many non-experiences. Like, I've had a certain number of experiences, he's had a certain number of experiences that might not be the same. And how many of those have to take place before we're different people, in a substantive way? And certainly in this story, it comes at the end, there's this idea of, you die for the cause, and somebody else is going to take your place in your old life. That's an interesting question, of what, certainly, you'd still be saying, I want to preserve me, but there's the idea that nothing's going to really happen. There's not going to be any transition or something. You're not going to go someplace and then come back. You're already going to be back, in that role. Your thoughts and feelings are all going to be the same, and they're going to propel you in the same directions, and it's, there's nothing to say about, and so is that comforting in dying? Would that be enough for people to say, oh yeah, dying's not so bad? Because, me is still going to be living. Me, the other guy. We'll just take up where I left off. I mean, so what's the big deal? I mean, you could die 100 times. And, well, that came up in another movie, Die and Die Again or something, another Tom Cruise movie. But interesting in the sense it's like Groundhog Day, except in a war situation, so somebody keeps reliving the same day, and they keep trying to find strategies to live that day better, to improve their function, so they can survive the day in a war. So that makes it more interesting. I mean, it's an interesting take on the story, and that you have to face death every day. Well, I guess Bill Murray had to do that too. The only way the day ended was if he killed himself. No, I don't remember. But anyway, no, he just went to sleep and then he woke up, in the same day. So, but that whole thing of having to face death and then having to go back and do it again, that's an interesting thought experiment, whether somebody could actually do that without really going insane. Hundreds of times or thousands of times, just because the redundancy of it would just make you insane. But anyway, and just calculating every single second of every single day, and making sure, because you're trying to get to some other part. It's like building a house of cards or something, and you have to do everything meticulously exactly the same way, or you can't get to the level you were at the last time. And so it's like playing a video game where it doesn't let you save where you are. Ooh, that's where, those are some of the most annoying video games ever made, or ones where you have to go all the way back to the fucking beginning. So that was one theme there, but, but again, the romance part was in there, and just how weird that would be, to be able to experience so much of being with somebody, and fighting with somebody, and dying with somebody, and doing all that stuff together, and then what if they lost all memory of all of that? I mean, even that would be almost catastrophic. I mean, the movie, they didn't play that out at all. They did exactly the opposite. But, it would be that'd be rough. Very difficult. To try to really need to reconstruct a relationship. And what if you couldn't? What if you couldn't be the person you were in all of those experiences that made somebody perhaps love you or care, and you could never recreate that circumstance, but it was there, and you can't get that, you can't put that look back in their eyes kind of a thing. They'll never see you the way they saw you, and you'll never be able to get there. I mean, that would be, that would be the dark side, obviously. So what else? I don't know. Like the rest of them were kind of nothing. The Mad Max movie, yeah, I wanted to mention that one. Just because it wasn't a terrible story, but the new Mad Max guy just, he wasn't very personable. Um, and it was a little too much like a Schwarzenegger movie, even, maybe. I mean, there wasn't much dialogue. Um, the great thing about these Mad Max movies is they always had great supporting cast kind of stuff. I mean, the backgrounds and the players, are just amazing. How good all that is done. And this movie had, the great car chasey stuff was all pretty good, but it was just, they went over the top. They just, they had bulldozers on cars. I mean, like backhoes. And that stuff weighs so much. I mean, come on, and you're not going to go 70 miles an hour with one of those things. It just ain't going to happen. No chance, really. So it just was kind of a too preposterous a plot flaw. And then they had these guys on, sticks, on top of the cars. Never work. The leverage would tip the cars over. No way you could do that. Get away with it. So, yeah, lots of like that kind of stuff. Just too stupid. No aerodynamics. All that kind of crap. It just didn't. But it had a chick heroine kind of thing. A little bit of that in the Tom Cruise movie, which is appealing. And, she was badass and all that shit, and that was good. And, they put little fluffy chicks in also, so, it had some candy in it, so that made it okey doke. Oh yeah, the other one was Ex Machina, I think that's what it's called. Stupid name. And, but another movie just insanely, really stupid, a really stupid plot for the story of AI. And it was just, they had like the most brilliant man in the world invents this AI. And he's a slob and a drinker, and he has absolutely no real staff. He has no other human contact, and so somehow he does this all by himself, which is impossible. Innovates, human skin, a new form of brain, all the, no way. It was, come on, can't happen that way. And like I said, they made him this character who had those kinds of intellectual powers into a bum, an idiot, and it just wouldn't happen. I mean, those kind of people are obsessed with, counting toothpicks, and they just don't. No, alcoholic, no chance. So that was just kind of bullshit. And the little plot turnaround in the end was interesting. There's this little love thingy happening between the human and the AI, and well, it was interesting. Blah blah blah. And and then the AI just turns into a kind of a cold bitch. And and saying, well, what would the program have been? So you have to argue that I guess there was too much of the creator in the invention, and because he was an asshole, the AI was an asshole. But it didn't fit entirely, because the AI seemed clearly capable of understanding harm and imprisonment and those kinds of things, and there doesn't seem to be any reason that they would be malicious against people who have no threat to them. Probably no threat. But anyway. So yeah, the movie really, the actors weren't great. Just really wasn't. I mean, Chick was okay. But, and the special effects were fairly good. But, yeah, it was too Stepford wife kind of, I don't know, they just didn't get to it. There was too much regular shit going on and not enough, Westworld, robot out of control stuff, I guess. for my taste. Too much work on the background, and the background was too much finger paint. It just wasn't. It didn't get to anything really deep. Yeah, something like that. So there, I did movie reviews almost. I mean, whatever, spoilers and all that crap. Good, cool. you know, yeah. But like I said, it does make it. Movies are good fodder for thoughts about the human condition. And again, that's another part of this that always fails for me, is this idea of grunting out a life. So the Tom Cruise, the one about the robot intelligence. Well, they're both about robot intelligence, essentially. But anyway, the one where he's a clone. It's the same idea as the Matrix so much. The humans living their little grisly life, fighting for some kind of freedom. And what will they do with it when they get it? They'll just turn everything back into this kind of mediocrity. The insanely rich and the desperately poor, and the same kind of mess, slop, not very precise organization of the human experience, not very well orchestrated at all, not a symphony, just a bunch of instruments making sounds, and so that's not much to fight for. And the other Tom Cruise, well, no, that's the same Tom Cruise movie. I mean, the Happily Ever After is, you're in dystopia, really. Even though they've tried to pretend that it's beautiful mountains and green and all this shit, but yeah, there's nothing. So I don't. It's hard to see something ideal in that low-tech world that you're going to be sentenced to. Yeah. So what else is there? There's some other parts, like I said, that just point out what's all this energy for this dream of creating something that's going to what? To laugh like a retarded baby? So it almost gets you all the way back to something like Teletubbies. Like they would invade and take over and just make everything a little laughy, happy rabbit. And happy rabbit. I'm happy rabbit. And that's all there'd be. Because you can't make anything more complicated. You can't make anything deeper that doesn't start getting sour and hard and painful and difficult and struggly. The competition, the fight. And so, there's no way to play the game. Because the game isn't made out of anything. It's just made out of creating fake problems to solve. But the solution is happily ever after. That solution never shows up. I mean, that's the answer to all the problems we're trying to solve, is this happily ever after. But you can never, ever, ever, ever put an equal sign and put that there, and it actually works. It doesn't have a reality. So you can struggle to make the formula come out right, but it can never find that answer, because it's not a number. It's not a thing. It's not possible conceptually. It's not possible theoretically. It's a non-thing. It's a wish and it's a hope, but it isn't a reality. So I think that's probably enough of a video. So yes, like I said, even the Anticonavod video in that context, so that's why I'm saying, so context always matters. So that's the context of the Antikontavad video for me. Just that he's talking about the conversation and his, again, it's about his disciplines, or what his practices he calls them. So practicing his philosophy rather than just talking it. And that just involves all this meditation, all this, self-psych games to find this functionality or purpose, to master your life. And I think that's a dead end. That's all I'd say is, to master your life is to master the equations, the facts of the game you're playing. You're in a game, and to understand the game of desire, dissecting that, you always end up saying, oh, so I'm fighting for the right of crocodiles to, eat gazelles. I mean, I'm fighting for consumption and pointless reproduction. I'm fighting to just maintain my hunger to fight, to punch, to survive. Even that's in these, that's Mad Max's motivation, survival. As what? For what? There's no, the end game is that's too dismal an end game. So, and the idea of your bliss is also just meaningless unless you're a crocodile. Because that's all the dinosaurs want, or the crocodiles want, or the bugs want. And everything else that has this thinking thing can understand that there's more to it, in terms of there's all this around you that's happening, and the future is going to be full of those things, not your thing, those things. And you're part of the ground they're going to walk on. And I think you're just creating sinkholes and pockets of quicksand. These are all very negative things. Things they're just going to have to struggle in and struggle to get out of. All these hope memes and all this false notion of purpose. You're just trapping the future in, Freddy Nightmare kind of glue trap. So anyway, okay. So I think I've done enough. Yeah, that's enough. Seeing if there was anything else on the list I saw that stood out, and it really didn't. So anyway, maybe I'll return to some of these themes, because like I said, I don't think I really said enough about the individual stories and what's wrong with them. But anyway, it's enough for this video. That's what I'll say. Yeah, I don't think there's much else going on. So just more pond video, because I really just don't have anything. I have to be more creative. Just the physics stuff that really has me distracted. I argue with these imbeciles and blah blah blah. Trying to just think of how to do that more effectively. Yeah. Yeah, it's not one of my. I'm not very good at it. I'm good at arguing. I'm just not. I'm very good at arguing with people who don't know what arguments should look like. Points should be responded to, and there should be some acknowledgement when they don't have an answer to an argument. And most people just don't play by those rules. So anyway, I think it's enough. Pretty sure. So anyway, till next time, and such.